Hello everybody and welcome back for another Pokemon Challenge Run video. Today I'll be attempting a Pokemon Emerald Shiny only Nuzlocke. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment below what Shiny was your favorite of the video. The rules. I'm only allowed to use Shiny Pokemon in battle. I am allowed to use held items, but no items in battle. And finally, if a Pokemon faints, it faints permanently. Now let's see if I can do this. I quickly start off the game and name myself K2T, like I normally do, and jump out of the back of a moving truck. And I get ready for my adventure. When I go to leave, I see Professor Birch getting attacked by a Zigzagoon. So I go to try and help him, but sadly, this Mudkip isn't shiny, so he's gonna have to wait a little bit longer. I eventually keep resetting until I eventually find the shiny Mudkip. I actually love this shiny, the purple on it. It just looks so nice. I can't wait for this thing to be a Swampert. I quickly take out the Zigzagoon for him, and he takes me to his lab. In that lab, he gives me the Mudkip, which I name Skips. He tells me to head north of here and try and find May. I eventually find her, and she wants to battle me. She has a Trico, which isn't shiny, so who really cares about it? I use a quick growl, couple tackles, and I eventually take it out. So I follow her back to the laboratory, where eventually she gives me Pokeballs, and Professor Birch gives me the Pokedex. Time to actually start our journey. I head west of here and try to make my way towards the first gym, before eventually getting stopped and forced to talk to my dad, Norman, the 5th gym leader, in Petalburg City. When there, Wally shows up, and he actually teaches us how to catch Pokemon. I really don't think I need him to teach me how to catch a Pokemon, considering I already have a bunch of runs on this channel alone, plus way too many hours put into this game. But anyways, we let him do his thing, and eventually he stops bothering us, before we're actually able to make our way over towards Rustboro City to take on the first gym leader. While heading over there, I try to find a new team member. I keep running through the grass till I eventually find a Tailo. I actually really like the look of this shiny, and I really can't wait till he's fully evolved. I quickly catch him, and I give him the name Tails, before eventually taking on Roxanne. This wasn't going to be much of a problem, since I have Skips, who's part water type, and I managed to be able to just stay barely under the level cap at 14 to make quick work of her first two Geodudes with one water gun each, before I eventually just keep spamming water gun on her nose pass. She eventually heals, before I eventually manage to take it out with a lucky crit. After that battle, Skips evolves into a Marshtomp, one evolution away from being one of the coolest Pokemon in this game. After exiting the gym, I see this guy get robbed, so I chase after the robber. I eventually make my way towards Rusturf Tunnel, where I find an old man named Mr. Briny, who actually had his Wingull, Pico, stolen from him. So I run in there and find a Team Aqua grunt with both the goods and the Wingull. So I quickly take him down. He sends out his Poochyena, I send in Tails, and make quick work of it, and eventually he gives up, runs away, and gives back the Wingull and the goods. Mr. Briny thanks me and lets me know if I ever need any help, he's there for me, which I might use a little bit later. But anyways, the goods that were stolen was actually stolen from the Devon Corporation. Because they were so happy with what I just did, they actually sent me on another task, this time to Dewford City, deliver a package to Steven. So I decide to actually do it and start heading south of here, before eventually my rival stops me. This fight would have been much harder for me if I didn't manage to get Tails, but now I have Skips, who can easily take out her Wingull, before I swap into Tails for a Trico, who easily takes it out with 2 Peck, even being 5 levels under. I keep heading south of here till I eventually find Mr. Briny. He offers me a ride over to Dewford City, since I can't get over there on foot, so he takes me on his boat, and we eventually make it there. While traveling there, I was actually informed that Steven's in the tunnel, so I make my way through the tunnel, and I go try and find him. But before I do that, I actually managed to find a random shiny Sableye, so of course I catch it, since this is one Pokemon that I actually never really use, if not ever use, so I'm excited to add her to the team. I give her the name Goggles, because, you know, looks like she has goggles on, before I eventually make it to the end of Granite Cave, and find Steven, and give him the goods. He thanks us, gives us Steel Wing, and we both leave the cave. Now that that's done, it's time for me to continue my journey and take on the second gym leader, Brawly. Brawly starts off with the chop. I start off with Tails. I use a quick growl before he uses a karate chop, puts me down to 4 HP. So I swap into Goggles before I eventually manage to just keep spamming Scratch and different attack, because this thing actually can't hit me since he has fighting moves, and I'm part Ghost type, so fighting does nothing to me. I eventually managed to take out the Machop before he eventually sends in his Metatype. Metatype, much like Machop, actually wasn't able to do anything to me either, so I just keep using Nightshade and I eventually take it out. Now it's time for his ace, Makuhita. I was worried this one might actually have an attack that can hit me, but all it really did was just use Bulk Up, and eventually I managed to actually take him out. This was actually the easiest gym I've ever fought, but thankfully I managed to pick up Goggles just before this, who is actually our savior. Now it's time to head east of here, back on the boat with Mr. Briny over to Slateport City. When there, I find Team Aqua up to no good in the museum. I run to the top to try and save the scientists before eventually getting attacked. I thought I was going to be able to make quick work of them, but I send out Tails, and he gets a pretty much one-shot bite on me after I put him into 1 HP to take out Tails. This one's sad to see, since I was actually really excited to see the final evolution of this, but you gotta keep going. So I send in Goggles, who gets taken down to 25 HP, but eventually takes it out. Now it's up for the next grunt, sends out a Zubat, I keep in Goggles. I eventually take him out, only losing 3 HP before he sends out his next Carvana, who takes me down to 9 HP before I eventually take him out. With those two down, Team Aqua actually retreat, and we save the museum in Slateport City. From here, I head north, under the cycling path, to try and find another shiny. I look through this grass. I was actually hoping to find an Electrike, since I really love what he looks like with his blue, but I don't end up finding him. I end up finding a Poochyena instead, which also looks pretty cool, and we'll eventually have the Intimidate ability, which will be really helpful for us in future battle. So I quickly catch him and name him Shadow. I keep heading north under the cycling trail before I eventually find my rival May once again, who wants to battle. So I battle her, and I start off with Shadow. She starts off with Wingull. I realize this isn't the best for me, so I swap into Skips. After a little bit of back and forth, I eventually manage to take out the Wingull, but get put to 12 HP. Now it's time for a Grovyle. So I swap into Goggles, use Nightshade a couple of times, get put down to 15 HP before I eventually take it out. Now last out is our Slugma. So I swap back into Skip, who actually manages to one-hit it, keeping all of our Pokemon alive and eventually defeating her. trainer. Now it's time for me to keep traveling north of here to eventually take on Watson, the 3rd gym leader. But before that, Shadow actually evolved from a Poochyena into a Mightyena. Now it's actually time to take on Watson. I start off with Shadow, who, like I said, has Intimidate, which is going to be really helpful. Not quite for this gym, but for other battles. He starts off with Voltorb. I use Bite, he uses Spark, I get some good damage, I get put to 2 HP and luckily survive before putting him to the yellow. So I send in Goggles, who makes quick work, takes him out, but gets put to 26 HP in the end. So I swap into Skips, who I was hoping would be able to carry me since he's part ground type now, and completely resist electric moves. Skips actually manages to one-shot the Electrike, almost one-shot the Magneton with some mud shots, but eventually managed to actually take it out, while losing no HP in the process. Last out is his main neck trick. I use 1 mud shot, do half his HP, he heals up, and I use 2 more mud shots, eventually take it out, only going down to 45 HP in the process. Had a little bit of good luck for this one, but I managed to make it out. After this, I start making my way towards Mount Chimney. But before that, I actually find this patch of grass, who has a couple cool Pokemon that I might want to add to the team. I was hoping for a Swablu, or actually a Lotad, one of the two. Eventually though, I managed to actually find a Lombre, which is even better, because I didn't have to worry about evolving the Lotad. So I quickly catch it, and I just name it KTT, just because hopefully it'll eventually be able to turn into the mascot of my channel, Ludicolo. Fingers crossed on that one. Eventually we make it to Mount Chimney, where we find Team Aqua and Team Magma fighting over a meteorite. They say something about heading to the top of Mount Chimney, so we go head back, but before that, we actually managed to find a Numel. Shiny Numel looks pretty cool right now, as is, changing from a green to a blue, but I actually can't wait to see this thing fully evolved. Camerupt has one of the coolest shinies. If only I could Mega Evolve it. So I quickly catch it and name it Rogue. I make my way to the top of Mount Chimney to eventually take on their leader, Maxie. I start off with Rogue. He starts off with Mightyena. I get a little bit of damage off before eventually getting put to 1 HP, luckily surviving. I would have been devastated to lose that one. Before I send in Goggles, I try to use a quick Fury Swipe before eventually getting crit hit to 2 HP, doing almost nothing, so I swap into Shadow. Shadow then uses the Rock Smash, puts it to 1 HP, it Sand Attack, and then heals itself back up, so I just keep swinging Rock Smash and eventually take it out. So I swap into KTT, who I try to use a Fake Out on before getting confused, hitting myself, and eventually having to actually swap out, because I get lucky, survive, and put to only 5 HP. So I swap into Skips, who uses the Water Gun, gets confused, so I swap back into Shadow, try to use the Bite to eventually take out the Zubat. Last out is his Camerupt, so I went to go swap into Skips, but I accidentally swapped into KTT instead. So I have to quick swap into Shadow, which actually was really helpful because I had the Intimidate off onto it to lower its attack stat, before I swapped into Skips. Skips then uses the Water Gun, puts it down to the yellow, before it heals, puts it down to the yellow again, before eventually taking it out. I think that maybe if I didn't Intimidate it, there was a chance I might actually have gotten taken out there. But who needs to know now, since all that matters is that we defeated Maxie and stopped Team Magma. Now it's time to head down the mountain and into Lava Ridge Town, take on the 4th gym leader, Flannery. Flannery starts out the battle with her Numel. I start off with Skips. I use a quick Water Gun, one-shot it, level up in the process, before she swaps into Slugma. I keep in Skips, I use a quick Mud Shot, and one-shot another Pokemon of hers. Now it's time for her Camerupt. I use a quick Water Gun on it, I get it really low, almost to the red, before eventually it uses Sunny Day and heals up. So I swap over to use Mud Shot instead, because Water Gun would have been less effective now, because of the sun, which puts it in the yellow, and allows me to take it out with a second Mud Shot. Now it's time for the Pokemon that I was scared of, her Torkoal. This thing is Overheat, which can actually pretty much one-shot my whole team at this point, so I gotta be very careful. So I swap into Goggles for it, I use a quick Fake Out to try and get a little bit extra damage off, knowing it's not gonna be able to hit me if I use it, before I go for a Nightshade, get some good damage off, before getting one-shot by the Overheat. This is exactly what I was afraid of, and it's sad to see Goggles go, but we gotta keep pushing forwards. He takes him to almost half HP. We now swap into Skips. Torkoal's at about half HP, so we use a quick Mud Shot, put it down to the yellow, before Flannery ends up healing up, so I just keep using Mud Shot. It eventually uses the Body Slam. Luckily, we don't get paralyzed. We keep using Mud Shot, Body Slam again, and eventually we take him out. We lost one in the process, but at least now we can say we defeated Flannery, the 4th gym leader. Sadly, it's time to put Goggles away in the box. You did good work, buddy. We wouldn't be here without you. So the only other thing now to do is to take on the 5th gym leader, Norman. But first, we decide to go get the TM for Dig. Dig's going to be super helpful since Norman has a Slacking, which has the ability Truant, so it'll only be able to attack every other turn, and hopefully I could use Dig to try and avoid his attacks since I end up going into the ground before I end up attacking the next turn. While getting ready, I actually decided to grab another team member. I was running in a cave and eventually actually randomly found a Zubat, so I decided to just add him to the team. I gave it the name Vector and went to go try and find my new team members that I was actually looking for, a Makuhita, which I eventually found, and I know this is going to be probably the most important Pokemon for this gym because Makuhita is fighting type. This fighting type is going to be able to easily do a lot of damage to all of his normal type Pokemon. So after way too many Pokeballs, I eventually managed to catch him and name him Knuckles. While there, I also decided, just in case for backup, I got one more team member there, Aaron. This Aaron was going to be super helpful just because it's going to be so resistant since it's part rock, part steel type. And Slacking's main move is Facade, which will do a lot of damage to us, but with this typing, it won't do nowhere near as much as it should. I name him Silver, train my whole team up, get everybody ready, and go take on Norman. Norman starts off the battle with a Spinda. I start off with Shadow. Shadow has his Intimidate off, I use a quick Bite, he uses Teeter Dance, confuses me. We kind of just keep going back and forth with this for a little bit until eventually I knock it out. Now it's time for me to swap into Knuckles for his Slacking. This is the exact Pokemon that I was worried about. So I go use a Vital Throw, use another one, put him down to the red, which he uses a berry to put him into the yellow now, for eventually actually taking me out. This one's sad because I talked about this in a previous video that Makuhita and Hariyama are two of my favorite Pokemon in this game, and it's sad to see a nice shiny of it go. But we keep moving forwards, we send out Skips, we use Dig, barely do any damage for it full heals, we just keep spamming Dig over and over and over and over thanks to that true ability that it has, and eventually we managed to knock it out since it doesn't want to heal anymore. Next out is Vigoroth. So I swap into Rogue, I use a quick magnitude, don't do too much. I go use another one, but could take it down to 14 HP while only putting it to half HP. So I swap out the Shadow, gets the Intimidate off, keep spamming Bite, and eventually I take it out, but I almost actually get taken out in the process. I rolled the dice a little bit and hoped for no crit and got a little lucky that I didn't get crit. So now I swap into Silver for his Linoon. Silver uses a Headbutt, it uses a Belly Drum, halves his own HP, I put it to the red, one more Headbutt takes it out to defeat the 5th gym leader, Norman. After that, this crazy guy comes in the gym, makes us follow him, and gives us an HM for Surf. Before I do anything else, it's gonna be sad to see, but I'm actually gonna have to put Knuckles away. I'm sorry, buddy. You weren't here for long, but you did good work. Now it's time to head east of here, eventually towards Fortree City. But before that, I eventually find Steven, who came to check up on me. Before I kept continuing my way towards Fortree City, but I actually got stopped by Team Aqua, and I couldn't pass. So I had to stop what they were doing over in the Weather Institute. This battle was supposed to be super easy, since all she has is a Carvanha and a Mightyena. But I wasn't really paying much attention, and I thought I was going to be able to just use Rock Smash on its whole team, but I ended up getting confused. And like I said, I wasn't really looking, I was just spamming A, and eventually actually got taken out, because I hit myself in the confusion a couple times. This was definitely a loss that I could have avoided. This was definitely a Pokemon that I probably could have used for the next gym, because of its Intimidate ability, but sadly due to my own stupidity, it's time for him to go. We quickly finish her off, and defeat Team Aqua once again, and make them scatter. As a thank you gift, the researchers actually gave us cast form, which I just put in the box. I don't really care much about it. Nobody really liked cast form, honestly. Leave a comment down below if you actually like him. I don't know, I feel like it's too weird of a Pokemon for me. Once again, this is a sad loss for the team, but it had to be done. I'm sorry, buddy. Now it's time to actually head over to Fortree City, but first, I gotta take on my rival. She starts off with Slugma, I start off with Rogue. Rogue uses a Magnitude, one-shots it. Now she sends out her Lombre, so I keep in Rogue. I go use an Ember, she uses a Fake Out on me, skips my turn, I use an Ember, do a little bit of damage, I keep trying to spam Ember, then I swap over to a Magnitude, put her into the red, it uses Absorb, then I manage to take it out with the next attack. Now it's time for a Grovyle. Luckily I have Vector, who's able to use a quick wing attack to easily one-shot it, defeating May. For beating her, she gives us the HM for Fly. Now that I've actually made it to Fortree City, I decided to get a new team member for this next gym, the Flying Gym, against Winona. I went a little bit back into this patch of grass, I started running around trying to find him, and eventually I actually found the Electrike that I was looking for earlier. I love this shiny, the blue on it. I can't wait for it to be a main Nectric. I eventually catch it, name it Omacho, and I quickly evolve it into a main Nectric. The black and yellow look on this is actually amazing. To prepare for this gym, I actually started teaching my team members new moves, including giving Silver the Rock Tomb. This will hopefully be good so I can use it on the Altaria to lower its speed. Also, I don't know if I said, but Silver actually evolved into a Lairon. After that, I went out of my way to get 2 new moves. I went to the abandoned ship, grabbed the storage key, and grabbed the TM for Ice Beam. After that, I headed back to Mawile City, talked to Watson, he gave us a basement key, we head in, we turn off the switch, we head back to him, and he gives us the TM for Thunderbolt. We then give the Thunderbolt TM to Omocho, then we also give the Ice Beam TM this time to Skips. With all these new moves, I feel like we're probably ready now to actually take on Winona and defeat her. I'm definitely very worried because of Altaria knowing Dragon Dance and Earthquake, but you'll never know what's going to happen until you eventually try it. Now it's actually time to take on Winona. I start off with Omocho. She starts off with her Swablu. Omocho makes quick work of it using a quick Thunderbolt, one-shots it before she sends in her Altaria. So I switch into Silver and I use a quick Rock Tomb on it to try and lower its speed, but she uses Dragon Dance to up her speed and her attack. This could be a big problem for us if we don't take care of it now. I do about half her HP before she eventually heals, so I go for another Rock Tomb. I actually slow it this time, doing another half its HP before eventually getting one hit by an Earthquake. Sad to see Silver go. The sacrifice had to be made to take out her ace and her scariest team member. Now that Silver's down, I swap into Skips, who I specifically got Ice Beam for to hopefully be able to take it out before she uses an Earthquake. Does almost half my HP, luckily not even, and I eventually managed to take it out with the Ice Beam. Next up is Tropius. So I keep in Skips, I go use an Ice Beam, put it to the red. Luckily it only took in Sunlight for its Solar Beam before I eventually took it out with a second Ice Beam. Next out is Pelipper. So I decide to swap back into Omocho, use a quick Thunderbolt before she eventually uses a Protect. So I use a second Thunderbolt and this time manage to hit it and take it out in one hit. Next out is Skarmory. So I swap into Rogue, I try to use an Ember, she keeps using Sand Attack, I don't do too much before eventually getting taken down to low HP, about 25. So instead of risking fainting, I swap back into Omocho, use a Thunderbolt, and quickly take it out, defeating Winona, giving us a 6 gym badge. But sadly we lost one team member in the process, Silver. You will be missed. After that, I was running south of Fortree City, and eventually Rogue actually evolved from a Numel into a Camera. This is one of the cooler shinies that you're ever going to see. I absolutely love the full black instead of the red that it normally is. It's just so awesome. I love it. We eventually then make our way over to Lilycove City, where we find our rival, who wants to quickly battle us. She starts off with a Tropius. We start off with Omocho. We use a quick Thunderbolt, do about half its HP, paralyze it also. A little bit lucky at that. She uses a Magical Leaf, doing a little bit to me before I eventually manage to take it out. Next up is her Grovyle. So I swap into Rogue, who is now fully evolved, into a Camera, who I use Ember with, do about half its HP, take a Leaf Blade before finishing it off. Next up is her Slugma. So I keep in Rogue, who's actually down to 27 HP, so this is a little bit risky, but I managed to outspeed and one-shot Magnitude it. Next up is Pelipper, so obviously I'm swapping out. Back into Omocho, who I try to once again use a Thunderbolt on a Pelipper, who uses Protect, before eventually actually being able to use Thunderbolt to quickly take it out, defeating May once again. After that, I make my way over to Mount up higher, where I eventually reached the top and found the leader of Team Aqua, Archie, stealing the red orb. Team Magma already managed to steal the blue orb. Now it's time to go try and put a stop to Team Magma and Team Aqua. We eventually make it back to Mount Chimney once again, start scaling down the side of it, before eventually a tunnel opens. It's actually Team Magma's secret hideout. Inside, that's where we find out that the legendary Pokemon Groudon is actually living inside of there. Maxie goes and uses the blue orb and tries to awaken it, before eventually just angering it, and it flees. He thought we were the problem, so he decided he wanted to battle us. He starts off with Mightyena, I start off with Vector. I use a quick Confuse Ray on it, get the confusion off. He uses a Scary Face. I use Bite, I use a Wing Attack, he hits itself. I just keep using Wing Attack, he keeps hitting himself, before he eventually uses a Swagger, which actually makes me manage to hit myself. Before he uses a Takedown, does good damage, he's in the red. I actually hit myself once again from 36 HP all the way down to 16, so I decided it's actually time to swap out. I then swap into Rogue, who gets Swaggered, and I instantly hit myself. A little unlucky. He uses Takedown, luckily he missed. There's a chance I might have not lived that one, before I eventually hit myself again and make it down to 1 HP, luckily surviving. So obviously, I'm swapping out. I go into KTT, Maxie uses a Takedown, does over half my HP, so I have to swap again because I'm not going to live another one. Right into Skips, who he actually managed to take himself out with another Takedown since he was so low. Next up is his Crobat, so I decide to swap back into Omocho. Even though he's super low, he lives a Bite, down to 16 HP, before I hit a Thunderbolt, put it to the red. Luckily, he swapped out instead of just attacking me, because I think he would have managed to knock me out. He swapped out into the Camera Up, my Thunderbolt does nothing, so obviously I swap back into Skips. I tank a Rock Slide, use a Quick Surf, and easily one-shot it. Next out, he sends back out his Crobat, who's in the red still. He then uses a Super Potion. I manage to surf it, put it back down to the red. It uses a Wing Attack, puts me down to 1 HP, a second time in this battle down to 1 HP of Pokemon, before I eventually manage to take it out. We got a lot of luck in this one, so I'm gonna have to probably make sure I train up from here on out for any key battles like this. After defeating Team Magma, it's time to go take out Team Aqua. We head back to Slateport City, where we find Archie and Team Aqua stealing a submarine. So we chase them and manage to find them in the Team Aqua hideout. While there though, we actually managed to find a random nugget and a Master Ball to go with it, which we'll use a little bit later. Towards the end of the hideout, we find Archie and the stolen submarine. We go try and stop him before one of his grunts wants to battle us. He sends out a Mightyena, we send out Rogue, we try to make quick work of it, it swaggers us, and of course we hit ourselves, because why wouldn't we? I guess we used up all of our luck in that last battle against Maxie. So we swap into Skips, he uses an Odor Sleuth, before eventually try to use a Surf, confusing us, and of course we hit ourselves in confusion. Before we try to use another Surf, it uses a Scary Face, we hit ourselves in confusion again, it uses Scary Face again, and just keeps using Scary Face. I keep spamming Surf, I eventually manage to snap out of confusion, I hit it for its Super Potions, and then I get a Crit Surf to knock it out, and basically one shot from almost full HP. Next up is his Golbat, so I swap into Omocho, who easily makes quick work of it with one Thunderbolt to take him out. To defeat Aqua Advent, Matt. I thought I was going to be able to go stop Archie now, but of course, Archie flees, and they're already on their way to go find Kyogre. After this, we're now able to head east of Lily Cove in a Mossdeep City, where on the way, Skips actually managed to evolve from a Marshtomp into a Swampert. Once again, just like Camera Up, this is one of the coolest shinies in this game, and I absolutely love Swampert, so I couldn't be any happier with this. We also have Vector evolve from a Golbat into a Crobat, who the pink shiny looks so much better than the green. I love the way that this one looks. Hope he stays on the team for a long time. Definitely not foreshadowing right now. So while here in Mossdeep, we decide it's time to take on the 7th gym leader, Tate and Liza. Tate and Liza start off with a Claydol and a Xatu. I start off with KTT and Skips. Sadly, I'm not able to evolve KTT yet because I don't have any Water Stones, and you can't get any Water Stones till after this gym, so we're keeping him as a Lombre for now. I actually taught both of them Surf, so I just tried to double Surf, see if I can get some good damage off, before Natu uses a Calm Mind, boosts its stats, and Claydol uses an Earthquake, which doesn't do very much to us, since we're both part Water type. I then use Surfs again, before Xatu uses a Psychic on KTT to basically one-shot knock it out. It's sad to see KTT go. I was so excited to see him become the mascot of our channel, but sadly, he's not going to make it that far. So I swap in Vector. The Claydol tries to use an Earthquake, does a little bit to Skips, before I eventually take it out with a Surf. Next up, they send out Lunatone. I use Bite with Vector, before getting one-shot Psychicked, losing another Pokemon in the process. I absolutely love that shiny. I'm so sad to see that one go too. Before Skips eventually gets a Surf off, and luckily Lunatone flinched. Otherwise, we might have lost another Pokemon in the process. We get some good damage off with that Surf, for it heals from its Citrus Berry, for us to then use Thunderbolt with Omocho on the Xatu, and Ice Beam this time for Skips instead of Surf. Omocho then manages to easily take out the Xatu with the Thunderbolt. Should have just done that one from the start, before they send in Soul Rock. Skips uses the Ice Beam, actually manages to crit and take out Lunatone from still in the green to fainting. Now it's just a Soul Rock. I use Bite and Ice Beam. Luckily Soul Rock flinches. We do a little bit of damage, nowhere near as much as I was hoping from this point. So I just use Bite again, and this time I try to use Mud Slap. I don't really know why since he's Levitate. We still don't do very much. So I use Bite again and Surf this time to eventually take him out. Sadly losing 2 Pokemon in the process, but giving us a 7th gym badge now. I decided it was only fair to give KTT his full evolution, even though he sadly is fainted right now, and he's no longer going to be on the team. So we evolve KTT from Alambre into the mascot of the channel, Ludicolo. I sadly put both of them away in the box to never be used again. After this, I head outside and find Team Magma up to no good at the space station. So I run in there to try and stop them, and I find Steven. Steven asked me to help him stop Team Magma, so of course I join his side and do so. They start off with camera up to Mightyena. I start off with Skips. Steven starts off with Metang. I just keep spamming surfs during this fight. Luckily, he uses swagger on him and not me before the second Mightyena comes out after I one-shot their camera up with surf. I once again, like I said, just keep spamming surf before eventually getting swaggered and confused. Now that we're both confused, I use surf again, get a little bit luckier this time, and manage to hit through it to knock out one of the Mightyenas and bring the other one down to the yellow. Metang actually manages to hit through the confusion as well to take out the other Mightyena. So they swap it in Golbat, so I use surf on them before eventually hitting myself in confusion. My luck could only go so far, and then taking an earthquake, which actually manages to take out Steven's Metang before he sends in his Aggron. I try to use surf. I actually hit myself. I thought I was going to faint after seeing that, but luckily Steven's Aggron actually has Thunder, which hit and one-shot the Golbat. Now it's just the camera up left who actually used Amnesia, so it increased his special defense before I eventually snapped out of confusion, luckily, otherwise I might have knocked myself out. Steven used Protect, and I easily one-shot the camera up before their last Pokemon comes out, Crobat. I use Ice Beam this time on the Crobat, do about half its HP before Steven lands another lucky Thunder to fully take it out, to defeat Team Magma and make them retreat. In return, Steven told me to go head over to his house real quick on the other side of Mossdeep City, where he gives me the HM for Dive. I'm gonna take a quick detour real quickly since I only have 3 team members, so I grab this Leaf Stone, which I'm gonna need a little bit later, find my 4th new team member, a Seedot. After a little bit of trying, I eventually catch it, and I name it Jet. I then quickly evolve him from a Seedot into a Nuzleaf, which has a really nice shiny. I absolutely love the orange on both of these two. And then I use that Leaf Stone that I just got to evolve it into a Shiftry. Not the biggest fan of the shiny, but it's definitely a cool Pokemon that I've always liked, even though I've never really used much. Now after adding a new Pokemon to the team, I head back into the ocean and try to find Team Aqua, where I eventually use Dive, head underwater. I eventually find the submarine. So I go back up to the surface, then I realize that I'm actually at the Team Aqua hideout. I go down to the bottom of the hideout, and I find the legendary Pokemon Kyogre. Archie doesn't want me here, so he tries to battle me, force me to leave. He starts off with his Mightyena. I start off with Omocho. I use a quick Thunderbolt, put him down to the red, before eventually getting swaggered, which actually confuses me. I'm really starting to hate that move, and Mightyena more and more. He uses a Super Potion, while I try to use another Thunderbolt while confused, and actually hit it and knock it out. Next up is his Crobat, so I stay in, use a Thunderbolt, while still being confused, hurt myself this time. He uses a Bite on me, takes me down to 59 HP. I risk it a little bit, I take a bite, get put down to 32. I might knock myself out if I hit myself here. So while still being confused, I try to, and I actually do end up hurting myself in the process. Taking myself down to 5 HP, luckily not taking myself out though. So of course I swap out into Skips, and now thanks to Crobat actually getting paralyzed due to my static, it's going to be slower than me now. So I just use one Ice Beam, put it down to the yellow. It actually can't move due to the paralysis. Before it eventually heals, I use another Ice Beam, put it down to the red, and use one last Ice Beam to take it out. Now it's time for a Sharpedo. I use a Surf on it, I use an Ice Beam on it, and then I use another Ice Beam, and eventually take it out while getting put down to 25 HP. I took a little bit of a risk there. Crit might have knocked me out, but I eventually managed to take it out with no casualties. Instead of retreating, Archie actually decides to try and capture Kyogre anyways, even though we beat him. So he uses the Red Orb, and all he does is manage to make the Kyogre angry and make him flee. Maxie eventually finds us. He was actually trying to stop Archie after realizing what Groudon was doing, but it's too late. Now both the legendary Pokemon, Groudon and Kyogre, are both set free and on the loose, destroying the Hoenn region. Archie and Maxie finally both realize what they've done, but it's too late for them. They can't do anything about this. We fly back to Sootopolis City, and we find the 2 legendary Pokemon battling it out. We have no clue what to do, but Steven says that the champion Wallace might have an idea, and he's down at the bottom of the Cave of Origin. So we head down there, and he talks about a legendary Pokemon named Rayquaza, who in the past actually managed to stop these 2 legendary Pokemon from battling before. He tells us it's at Sky Pillar, so we head over there, and we climb to the top of Sky Pillar, where we find that legendary Pokemon Rayquaza. We awaken him, and he flies off. We go back to Sootopolis City now, and we find the 2 legendary Pokemon Kyogre and Groudon still battling, but this time, Rayquaza's there to stop it. He forces both the other 2 legendary Pokemon to go back to their original places. Now everything is back to normal. As a thank you gift, Wallace gives us the HM for Waterfall, and now we're actually able to take on the 8th gym leader and get ready to go into the Elite Four after that. But first, I wanted to go back to Sky Pillar and find one of my favorite Pokemon ever, Shiny Rayquaza. So I go back there real quick, and after a good amount of resets, I eventually find it, the fully black Shiny Rayquaza. I'm not messing around since this thing's level 70. I'm not even going to use it, but I just really wanted to catch it. So I quickly Master Ball it, and I throw it on my PC after naming it Shadow 2. Now it's actually time to take on the 8th gym leader, Quan. Quan starts off with a Love Disc, so I start off with Omocho. This is a completely water type gym, so this should be pretty easy for me. I use a quick Thunderbolt and one-shot it. Next out is Wish Catch, so I have to swap out since it's part ground type, and I swap into Jet. I use a Bullet Seed, practically put it down to 1 HP, before it uses a Rain Dance. He then heals, so I use Bullet Seed again, this time get a little bit lucky with a crit, and manage to actually take it out. So Quan now sends in his Celio, so we send back in Omocho, who uses a Thunderbolt and one-shots it. Now it's time for his Crawdaunt, who we also one-shot Thunderbolt, and then his Kingdra, who we go Thunderbolt, but it uses a double team. We managed to actually miss. I get a little bit scared at this point, worrying he might just keep spamming double team, and we will never be able to hit it. But we use another Thunderbolt. This time we hit it. It double teams again, and we use another Thunderbolt, and with a little bit of good luck, we manage to hit it and take it out, defeat Quan, and give us the 8th gym badge. Now it's time to go to the Elite Four. But I feel like we're gonna have to get a couple new team members first and fill out our party before we want any chance at being able to beat that. So I head back to Mount Chimney, up this little waterfall, and all the way in the back of this cave, we find the TM from Dragon Claw, and we also find our next new team member, a shiny Bagon. I absolutely love Bagon. I never really get to use it because it's in such a weird spot and it's hard to get, but I decided this was going to be the run that I wanted to use it. I eventually catch it and name it Big Cat before eventually making my way up the waterfall and to the beginning of Victory Road. But first, I once again get another Pokemon, this time my last team member, so I had to go back to Sky Pillar, where I eventually find a shiny Claydol. I just wanted some type of type coverage for Psychic type since I had the Psychic TM that I wanted to teach him, but sadly on my first attempt, this Claydol actually managed to explode itself, losing a shiny in the process, plus giving me a near heart attack, thinking I was about to faint. Eventually I find another one, I lower its HP, and I eventually catch it, and I give it the name Blaze. Now it's time to go through Victory Road, but first, Wally stops me for one final battle. This was going to be much more difficult than its other battles, because this time he has a full team. So he starts off with his Altaria, I start off with Omocho, I use a quick Thunderbolt, do about half its HP, it uses a Dragon Breath, and it manages to actually paralyze me somehow, before using a Dragon Dance, which thankfully, he didn't do any damage to me, because it's a stat boosting move, and I managed to take it out with the second Thunderbolt. Next up is his Delcatty, so I swap in a Rogue, who I use an Earthquake with, to put it to 1 HP, before he eventually full heals. I Earthquake again, he gets a Leech Seed off, before I Earthquake one more time to take it out. Now it's time for his Magneton. So I stay in, I use an Earthquake, and easily one-hit it. Next up is his Roselia, so I stay in once again, it uses Toxic, and misses luckily, before I go to use an Eruption. I'm somehow confused, but I luckily managed to hit through it, take it out for Wally's last Pokemon, and his ace, Gardevoir. So I send in Jet, Wally uses a double team, I use a Shadow Ball, put it down to the yellow, it uses double team again, I use Shadow Ball, this time to take it out, defeat Wally, and finally be able to make it to the Elite Four. Before taking them on, I had to fully level up my team, and Big Cat actually managed to evolve from a Bagon into a Shelgon. I never actually seen this shiny before in Pokemon Emerald games. It looks a lot nicer than the new one, honestly, but still nowhere near as cool as the next one, which he quickly then evolved, once again, from Shelgon, this time into Salamence. Has one of the cooler shinies in this game, much like Swampert and Camerupt, with its lime green color instead of its sky bluish color that it normally has. We then teach him the move Fly. We also teach Skips, Earthquake, teach our Big Cat Salamence, Dragon Claw over Dragon Breath, and Blaze Strength. And a couple other moves, use up all the different items that we have to build this final team, all level 53. Here's the types, abilities, natures, and where we caught everybody at. Here's the stats of each Pokemon. And here are the moves of each Pokemon. Now that we're ready to take him on, we head on in to take on the first Elite Four member, Sydney. This one's going to be the easiest, since he has the lowest level. He starts off with that pesky Mightyena. Ew. I'm starting to really hate this Pokemon more and more, which intimidates me, which doesn't really do much to me, since I'm going to use special moves anyways. I use a quick Thunderbolt, and easily one-shot it. Next up is a Shiftry, so I swap in a Rogue. I go use an Eruption, and easily one-shot it. Next up is Crawdaunt, so I swap this time in a Jet, use a Bullet Seed, and quickly take it out. Next up is his Absol, so we swap in a Blaze, who uses an Earthquake, takes out about half its HP, it Sword Stances, we use another Earthquake to take it out this time. Last out is his Cacturn, so we swap back into Rogue, we use a quick Eruption, it Leech Seeds, doesn't really do anything to us, and we easily one-shot it to take it out and defeat the first Elite Four member, Sydney. Next up is Phoebe. Phoebe starts off with the Dusclops, so we start off with Jet. Jet uses a Shadow Ball, it protects, so we try to use Shadow Ball again, get about half HP on it, it uses Curse, takes out the other half, so we now know that we're going to have to actually swap out for a second Dusclops, so we swap into Rogue, who uses an Earthquake, does about half its HP, before it heals from its Citrus Berry, just enough so that way our next Earthquake puts it down to 1 HP instead of knocking it out, so it can take us down to 5 HP, so of course we have to swap out. For some reason here, I don't actually swap out. I go to use another Earthquake, she uses a full restore, and I still don't swap out. I hit the Earthquake, put it down to about half HP, before still not swapping out, using another Earthquake to get lucky and actually manage to take it out at 5 HP. I could have easily thrown that right there, but I got a little bit of good luck and a little bit of bad AI on my side. Next up is her Banette, so I send in Jet to make quick work of it with 2 Shadow Balls. After that, it's her Sableye. So I keep in Jet, use a Shadow Ball, don't do really all that much. It uses a double team, I use an Aerial Ace, I use another Aerial Ace, put it down to the red before getting put down to 26 HP. She full restores, I use another Aerial Ace, don't do very much. So now that she's in the green and I'm in the red and I'm not going to be able to take her out, I swap into Big Cat, who takes a Shadow Ball before I try to use a Brick Break for some reason on a Ghost type, which obviously doesn't do anything, before I use a Fly, which actually missed, so I take a Feint Attack, get put down to 40 HP, so I have to swap out again. This time into Blaze. Blaze gets hit by a Feint Attack, for some reason I swapped in a Psychic type, which instantly got taken down to the yellow 40 HP, so I swap out once again, this time into Skips, who easily tanks a Shadow Ball, using an Earthquake to quickly take it out. Should have just done that from the start. Out next is our final Pokemon, another Banette. I take a Shadow Ball, Ball, I use an Earthquake, put it on very low into the yellow before taking it out with a second Earthquake. I could have probably been taken out if the Banette crit me there, but I guess I got a little bit lucky to then take down Phoebe and defeat the second Elite Four member. Next up is Glacia. Glacia starts out with a Celio, so we start off with Omocho. I use a Thunderbolt and easily one-shot it. Next up is her Glalie, so I send in Rogue. I use Eruption, put it down to 1 HP before she full heals, so I use an Earthquake, this time only taking it down to the yellow. It uses an Ice Beam on me, does almost half my HP, not quite, before I eventually manage to take it out with another Earthquake. Next out is a Walrein, so obviously I'm going to swap out. This time back into Omocho, who I try to use a Thunder with. I actually managed to hit the Thunder. It tries to Sheer Cold me. Luckily it missed, so I try to use another Thunder. I actually missed this time. It Sheer Colds again. Thankfully it misses again, so I go for another Thunder. This time I actually hit it to knock out the Walrein. That could have gone a lot worse. If she hit one of those Sheer Colds, I would have been instantly knocked out, so I guess I got a little bit lucky. Next out is her second Celio, who I easily once again one-shot with a Thunderbolt, and now into her last Pokemon, her second Glalie. I send back in Rogue, I use an Eruption, and this time I managed to actually one-hit it, taking out Glalie, defeating the third Elite Four member. Next Elite Four member up, Drake, the Dragon-type trainer. Lucky for me, Skips, the Pokemon that I taught Ice Beam to, is still on the team, so it should be a big help for this fight. First out's is Shelgon. I start off with Skips, he uses a Protect, I try to Earthquake it, but obviously, like I said, it used Protect, so the next turn I use another Earthquake, do about half its HP, it uses a Rock Tomb, doesn't do much, but it lowers my speed. So I try to use another Earthquake, for it double edges me, not doing too much damage, before I eventually hit the second Earthquake to knock it out. Next up is Altaria, who I stay in for, try to Ice Beam it, before he uses Dragon Breath, gets a Paralyze on me. I manage to hit him with the Ice Beam and put him to the red. So I use another Ice Beam before he full restores, hitting the Ice Beam, putting it even lower into the red this time, before eventually I try to use another Ice Beam, but he uses double edge, takes himself out without taking me out, thankfully. Next up is his Kingdra. So I swap into Omocho, who uses a Thunderbolt, does about half its HP before it Dragon Dances, and then uses a Surf on me the next turn, which I thought might have taken me out, but I forgot Dragon Dance doesn't up your special attack. I was fine, I managed to take it out with a second Thunderbolt. Second to last out is his Flagon. So I send in Big Cat for it, I use a Dragon Claw, easily managed to one-shot it. Last out is his Salamence. So I have to stay in. I have to show him who has the better Salamence. He's got a 2-level lead on me, but I managed to use a Dragon Claw, put it down to the red, for it uses a Dragon Claw back on me, puts me down to 20, but I'm staying in, and I'm taking it out, using another Dragon Claw to this time finish it off and defeat the fourth Elite Four member, Drake, proving that we have the better Salamence. Now it's time for the champion, Wallace. He starts off with a Wailord. We start off with Omocho. We easily one-shot. I thought that was probably going to take 2 just because I thought I had higher defense, but it really didn't. Next out is Gyarados, who is an even easier one-shot with a Thunderbolt. This is part flying, part water, before Wallace sends in his Wish Cache. Once again, obviously, I can't attack this thing because it's part ground type, so I swap into Jet, who I try to use Bullet Seed to put it down to the yellow, and with a second Bullet Seed, take it out. Next out is Milotic, who I send back in Omocho for. I use a Thunderbolt, do about half its HP, get the Paralyze too, before it uses Surf on me, and puts me down to 33. So I use another Thunderbolt, somehow putting it to 1 HP, not knocking it out, but getting very lucky in the process, since the paralysis actually made it so he couldn't hit me. Otherwise I would have fainted right here. So I use another Thunderbolt to hopefully knock it out, while his full restores, knocking off the paralysis, and full healing. So my Thunderbolt only did about half its HP once again, before I use another Thunderbolt to actually take it out this time. Left at 33 HP, Wallace sends out his Tentacruel, I stay in, I use another Thunderbolt, easily one-shot it, before last up is Ludicolo. So I stay in, I was hoping I'd be able to get another one-shot Thunderbolt off, but I only do about half its HP, and I actually get taken out, losing another member. Luckily it's the final battle, so I guess it doesn't matter that much. But anyways, I send in Big Cat, or Salamence, who I use Fly with. It uses Double Team. Luckily we still managed to hit it, take it out, and defeat the champion, Wallace, becoming the champion, Pokemon Emerald, in the Hoenn region, using only shiny type Pokemon. If you made it this far in the video, I'd like to say thank you all for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Comment down below which shiny you think was your favorite of the video. Also, let me know what other challenge runs you want me to see me attempt. And hopefully, I will see you in the next one. Until next time.